Wow, and what a pleasure for me to announce the next conversation that we have on stage. The stars just keep coming, and we certainly have two coming up right now. In conversation with Lisa Witter, we have Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Mary Robinson. Please welcome them to the Social Good Summit stage.
We're going to make an arch sandwich surrounded by the pink ladies. So it's really an honor for me to have this position to be able to ask you some questions. We were recently together in Addis talking about child marriage, which I'd like to talk about a little bit. But let's start off the conversation by talking about the elders. It started off originally as an idea. Peter Gabriel and Richard Branson came together and said, there's this new global village as we're interconnected more than ever before. What do? We need global elders. And he went to Nelson Mandela, and then Nelson Mandela spoke to you. What did Mandela say to you? And why did you choose to be involved?
Why did I choose to be involved? Have you ever been with Mandela and he asks you something? No, but I think it was such a fantastic idea. Global village. In the traditional village, you have elders who bring to bear on a number of issues their experience, and he was able to invite, and I don't think any one of us was able to say no. He and Gracia invited a splendid array, really scintillating group of people. Mary Robinson, Kofi Annan, President Jimmy Carter, Gro Brundtland, and a number of things that were said. One was obviously to bring our experience with regard to conflict resolution, our experience at what is this lovely term?
Happiness, life?
The voices.
Amplify.
It's not my mother tongue. Amplifying, one extraordinarily so, yes. I mean, that there are people there who don't get to be noticed, and you might be able to help turn a spotlight on them. And the thing is that all of these wonderful people brought very considerable experience. They were now no longer looking for kudos. They were not in public office. They would want to bring their experience. And it's been an incredible, I think, institution. And then we've had those who belong to what we have called our advisory board, who are all kinds of people. Part of the reason for having them is Lolly. They support the enterprise with dollars and cents. But they also bring to bear their own particular experience.
Mary, Archbishop was talking about bringing the voices of those who may not have a voice, and really using your stature and the respect people have for you around the world. One of the recent initiatives is you have brought together this partnership to end child marriage, to let girls be girls and not brides. Maybe you could speak a little bit about what you're doing in that and why that's so important to the elders.
Well, from the very beginning, we were clear that we'd like as elders to be very supportive of women and girls and address some of the problems. And we recognize that one of the issues that causes women and girls in particular, to feel second class and to feel is in fact a misuse of religion and tradition and traditional practices. So we made a very strong statement, which we put on our website, www.theelders.org. I'm very digitally...
Very good, yeah.
So, and then we said... No. The other thing that Madiba said, that Nelson Mandela said to us, was to really reach out to young people. So we have to, in fact, be very good on social media and, be very with it. But getting back to having made this statement and thought through the fact that we had to appeal to religious leaders and traditional chiefs to be supportive of women and girls and of equality and empowerment, what would we do in practice? And we began to look at the issue of child marriage. And I think it's fair to say, as a former High Commissioner for Human Rights, I knew that was a serious issue, but I really underestimated it. And I think, Arch, you've said the same.
Hopeless.
Yeah. And when we learned that, 10 million girls a year are married, usually without their prior knowledge, certainly without their consent, before they're 18. And when we were together in Ethiopia, before we had that conference that you moderated so well, Lisa, we went to the Amhara region, and the average marriage age there is 12. We met 8, 9 and 10-year-olds who were married. And we all have our special memories, I think. Mine is of the 16-year-old who had been married a year, and we had an opportunity to have some conversation with a few of the couples that were there. And I said to her, just to start that conversation, I said, "What was your wedding day? What's your memory of your wedding day?" And she just looked at me sadly and she said, "I had to leave school." And I realized for her it was the sort of end of her sense of her own education and development. And I asked her, "Well, now that you're married, any chance of going back to school?" And she said no. So at the age of 15, she felt, that's the end for me. And she became a kind of slave, in the home of her husband that she didn't know beforehand, in a strange environment with a strange family. And there are understandable reasons. There's poverty. In some cultures, there's a fear that young teenage girls will have a relationship outside marriage, and that would shame the family. So better to marry her quickly. So, there are reasons behind the traditional practice, but it's a harmful traditional practice. It's not justifiable by calling it cultural.
I'd love to roll a video that the elders have put together, a partnership of grassroots coalition from around the world to really look at this issue at the local level, and have just released. You can see at girlsnotbrides.com and at girlsnotbride on Twitter. You can see this and sort of see the conversation. If we could roll the video of this extraordinary piece you have just done that explains the issue.
Every year, 10 million girls are forcibly married before the age of 18 in Africa, the Americas, Asia and Europe.
That is something like 25,000 girls every day.
People don't seem to talk much about child brides. Perhaps it is seen as a family issue and not a public one, or a cultural issue and not one of human rights. But I cannot stay silent.
This is a grave human rights issue, but it's also a development issue. How can you improve girls' education when they're taken out of school to be married? How can you reduce maternal or child mortality when girls are giving birth at 12 or 13? How can you reduce poverty when child marriage perpetuates poverty?
People may say it is tradition. It cannot change. But I know it is not true. Traditions can change because they are made by people.
Great change can happen in a single generation. I know this to be true. I've seen it with my own eyes.
Change happens through protecting girls' rights in law and practice, empowering them to take control of their own bodies and destinies. and to even become leaders and change makers themselves.
Once you have women liberated, it's amazing how many other problems get resolved. Poverty, education, health. Women are the key in any community.
Change happens through raising community awareness of the dangers of child marriage and the benefits of stopping this practice. This is happening on a small scale, but change is far too slow.
Just imagine what would happen if we invest more in girls, enabling them to make choices, to earn a living with dignity, to break the cycle of illiteracy, the cycle of ill health, the cycle of poverty that traps them and their communities.
Imagine if we connect all those around the world who are working bravely to end child marriage. Imagine the scale of change possible.
We can do more than imagine. We can end child marriage now. Let girls be girls and not brides.
Thank you.
The last line that was on the slide before it went to the logo, it says within a generation, and let's talk about generations. A lot of people here in the audience and watching at home are from a generation they've grown up with technology and social media, and both of you have been involved in movements and are now. How, if you think back in your time and your organizing, how are things different now, and how is technology playing in your minds for better or for worse?
Yes, I think, the fact that people can be in touch with one another so quickly. We've seen what's happened in the so-called Arab Spring. The social media have obviously had a very, very significant part to play. But it is still the case that you've got to have bodies there. It is that they are able to congregate, but you still need to have people in the square, Tahrir Square. You need to have faces. I'm glad to see what especially young people can do. They blow my mind. They use all these wonderful words. It's awesome. Well, I think actually that young people are awesome. I've been amazed at just how idealistic they are. That young people, in fact, dream God's dream. They believe that poverty can, in fact, become history. They believe that we can have a different, a better world. And I just say, and of course they've got these means of communication, but they still need the meeting of bodies. They still need to have the people who inspire them. The Mary Robinsons. Mary could have said, well, I've done my stint as president of the Irish Republic. I've done my stint as a United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. But here she is, I mean, going like crazy. Really also wanting to...
Who's talking about going like crazy?
Mary,
How many events
Mary,
have you done in the last week? Come
Mary,
on.
I am your chair, and you have to behave yourself. But I do want to say, I mean, that especially to young people, not exclusively, because I know, for instance, what they did in the time of our struggle against apartheid. The anti-apartheid movement was not exclusively, but very largely, it was students at university campuses, you know, who were campaigning. And I just want to pay you a very, very warm tribute and to say, go on going on. God needs you to make this the better home for all of us that we know it can be. A home where no one need go to bed hungry. No child should catch disease because they didn't have clean water to drink, that they didn't have enough money for a very, very inexpensive inoculation. And you, but again, I can see there are one or two gray hairs and so on. It's wonderful that you also have retained your oomph. And as an old man, I sit and I look and I say, aren't they just neat? Yeah. You are awesome. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? You referenced God, and I'm wondering, do you and God tweet?
What?
Do you and God tweet?
Do I?
Do you use Twitter?
Tweet.
No.
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 Rumor has it you have an iPhone and an iPad, though. I hear you're pretty up on the technology. Look at that. It's official.
But I have to tell you, my grandchildren said, does he know how to use it?
Mary, do you tweet?
I do, but I'm still, not in the front line of technology. I am, very much somebody who understands the politics of trying to change something in a generation, which is what you were talking about. I don't think 10 years ago we could have really embarked on a global change affecting 10 million girls in so many different parts of the world. And said, we'll do it in a generation. Now, the reason we say in a generation is we believe that if we can keep the girls in school, change the community attitude, the traditional chief, the village itself, or the rural area, or the slum, or whatever, and the communities, that if girls get that chance to stay in school, especially secondary school, and then are strong enough to have their own choices, a good sense of themselves, their own potential, they will not allow their daughters to be married off. And they'll influence their community. So that's the generation part. But I think what we have now is the potential of mobilizing. We learned as elders, linking with our terrific staff who've been doing a lot of homework and work on this, that there are about 150 organizations that have been dealing with child marriage. Some of them are international, like Save the Children, YWCA, etc. Others were very local, but they weren't connected on the issue. And part of the reason they weren't connected was it's not an easy issue. Marriage is not a completely private family thing. It involves a public sort of ceremony of some sort, some blessing of some sort, and therefore a lot of organizations that were dealing with the girl effect, the girl child, the importance now for development of girls, didn't want to take this one on. But when the elders said we would be keen to see a global coalition, we were absolutely taken aback by how quickly organizations have come together. The meeting in Addis was very significant, discussing this, but we now have more than 40 organizations that have signed up. We have terrific foundations helping us, the Ford Foundation, the Nova Foundation, the Nike Foundation, UN Foundation, individual donors, and it is an issue that everybody can do something about. I mean, those of you who tweet every day, tweet about this, tweet about child marriage. Go into the website and find the organizations that are supportive of it. Give that kind of encouragement. I was listening yesterday when Archbishop Tutu spoke so passionately about it, and he actually said something. I've never heard him say this about something before. He said that he feels as strongly about it as the commitment that he had to address apartheid. And I could see people in the room actually tweeting that, because it was a kind of...
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it has got to all of us, because you cannot meet these girls and see, you know, how invisible they are when it happens to them. They don't have a strong sense of themselves and their worth. Nobody's ever told them that they themselves are worthwhile and important. So they're simply a package somehow, married into another family, living and responding sexually because that's what they have to do, far too young, and out of school, risking early death, because we know that 15-year-olds and under who get married are 5 times more likely than a young woman of 19, 20, 21 to die giving birth or in that process. So the risk of HIV is much greater. Every single issue you can think of a human rights sort and the Millennium Goals is affected by child marriage. And we have this opportunity for this global partnership at the different levels. And we will certainly be taking it to different countries. We'll be in India before the year is out talking about this issue.
Great. You talked about a sense of self, and both of you are extraordinary people with energy that I have just quite never seen before. For those of us who are dedicating our lives, whether we're, teenagers or middle-aged or older, as elders, what advice do you have for us in two ways? One, how do you keep the energy? How do you keep this optimism that you clearly both exude? You just feel it being around you. How do you keep that optimism, number one? And two, if we're going to nurture characteristics or skills in ourselves to help us be better at organizing, doing social movements, what advice do you have for us?
Do you want to? Ladies first.
I have to do what he tells because he's my chair, Optimism. I think I've certainly recognized that there are maybe 2 kinds of people. One kind see the glass half full, or even a tiny bit of water or whatever it is in it, and you build on that. And the other sees the glass half empty. Yes, but, and they start seeing the negative. And when I was serving as UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, I had to go to some of the places of the worst human rights inhumanities. Terrible, terrible scenes of conflict. We still see them as elders when we go to difficult countries, but it was part of my work, if you like. And my colleagues would say, how come, you don't get depressed, that you don't get demoralized by it? And I think I'm lucky that innately I do tend to see, okay, it's difficult, but there's something we can do. There's something we can do to make it better. So that'd be one thing. And I think on the sort of I feel that throughout my life, to be honest, when I was a lawyer in Ireland, I was taking the kind of cases that make a difference, especially for women in the Ireland of that time, opening up space, etc. Then to be elected president of your country is the greatest honor you can have, in that sense. And I had a wonderful 7 years. And then I had a really tough job, but I loved the work I was doing. And really, if you feel that you're making a difference in your work, you're very lucky. There are a lot of people who don't have jobs, or their jobs are very tedious. But I think even if your job isn't a very exciting job, if you engage with people, you get back so much more than you give. As soon as you give of yourself, you actually get back a huge amount. And I'm one of the younger elders, I hope you notice.
A yelder or something, yeah.
A very young elder. And I am learning from my fellow elders, quite genuinely. Mm-hmm. And I see the quality they have of a simplicity to and an accessibility, and also something that the Arch exceeds in, and that is humor. Mm-hmm. Humor makes people very approachable. Mm-hmm. It makes people, empathize, and I think, that they're all qualities that I'm trying to learn better.
So stay optimistic.
See the positive side. See there's something you can do.
See the positive side. Engage with others. For some people, that may be having a job that they love, and others, it's in their volunteer lives, their family lives. And what was your third one?
I'm an elder. I've forgotten.
Oh, yeah. That was a great line. Arch, what's your recommendation?
Yes.
That's good.
I would differ very slightly with Mary and you. Optimism. I'm not an optimist, but I am a prisoner of hope, which is quite different, because I think optimism is really wobbly. And it isn't, I think that, Mary may have not mentioned it, but I think also that having a faith, and I am a Christian, and at the heart of our faith is, in a sense, one of the worst kind of failures, or what appeared to be this Good Friday. When Good Friday happened, it looked like, evil had accomplished all that it sought. Now, when you believe in this and you see that Good Friday gets to be followed by Easter, then forever you will be a prisoner of hope. And sometimes, you say, God, gee, man, I believe you are in charge, but for goodness sake, why don't you make it slightly more obvious? That you hold on to this by the skin of your teeth frequently. But it's quite amazing, actually, when you look at the span of history, just how ultimately good prevails. You've got all these awful guys who have been strutting the stage, a Hitler, a Mussolini, an Amin, all of them at one point thought that they were invincible. But almost always they get to bite the dust. And that is important. I think it is important for all of us to know that even when the stakes are high against, in the end, good prevails. Good prevails, and I think, that we hold on to that. We hold on to the fact that people are fundamentally good. People are fundamentally good, and each one of us has an instinct that allows us to home in on goodness. Because, the people, all of us here, the people we admire, revere, aren't usually the powerful, the macho. You could say a lot of things about Mother Teresa, but macho would not be one of them. And yet a lot of us, the Dalai Lama. I try very hard not to be jealous. but I here is this guy who can't even speak English properly. And you get 60,000 heaps and heaps of people who want to go and hear him. Why? Because I think, that he communicates goodness. And we have this instinct that says, yeah, we connect, because that is what we are ultimately. Compassion, integrity, gentleness. Those are the things that really make the world go round. And it's going to be okay, eventually. And all of you here are enlisted by God to make this world that kind of world. And you are just fantastic. You don't know, God looks down and
I don't know about everyone,
did you
but
notice
yeah,
that thing?
I know. I have four or 5 seconds over.
Yeah.
He keeps me on it. He's my chair too, I guess. If it were humanly possible to bottle both of your spirits and take it with us throughout our days, we would, and I think many of us do. So I would just like to say thank you for your grace and your humor and your spirituality and your energy and your commitment. Really, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
I don't want to jump in on the middle of this. Like,